All right, we are live. And Zach, I want you to reach in your gym shorts and tell me if you have a pair, because on In the Can, we're not going to get out toughed. This is the way back on In the Can, part of the Barn Burner Podcast Network.
Hey, you're the best player on the team.
I know you're suffering. I just want you to be happy again, but you gotta want it too.
Keep pressing, trapping, taking charges. You guys earned this tonight. In the end.
All right, welcome to In the Can, the movie podcast on the Barn Burner Podcast Network. We are about to talk the way back, the new Affleck basketball movie that basically went direct to VOD after COVID-19 kind of ruined the theater-going experience for the whole country. And right now I'm drinking an ice-cold Michelob Ultra in a draft glass like our boy Cunningham would. Enjoying a nice domestic beer. And I'm here with Zach. We're about to talk this movie. We're in a quarantine right now, so all we can do is watch movies. And given that there's no sports, what better thing to do than to watch sports movies? Zach, how are you? Are you excited to talk about this movie?
I am. I was expecting you to have imported some cutters to your, or not import, but to have at least, have some cutters shipped to your house so that it could be a little bit more authentic. But, that's okay. Michelob Ultra, that'll do.
I just needed a nice light beer in a glass, for the effect there. It's it's actually pretty delicious. I don't drink Michelob much anymore, but it's light, crisp, and not many calories.
Yeah, I may have gotten a Costco pack the last time I was there, so working through that.
Very nice. The plot of this movie, I'll just read it. I got the Warner Brothers version. It's pretty good. So back in high school, Jack Cunningham had everything going for him. A basketball phenom, he could have punched his ticket to college and even the pros, but instead he chose to walk away from the game, forfeiting his future. Jack's glory days are gone, but it turns out not forgotten. Years later, he gets the chance to take back his life when he's asked to coach his high school team. He reluctantly accepts, but he's about to learn more about himself than the boys do. That's a nice little Warner Brothers plot summary and a good setup to this movie, which if I asked you right now, is this a basketball movie?
I would say I went in expecting it to be a basketball movie, and then the further along that I got in the movie, I realized that is not what it was about. So right now I would have to go with, no, it is not a basketball movie. There's a lot of, it's Die Hard, a Christmas movie. It takes place during Christmas, but that's a debate that you can have.
What is it about?
I'd say it is about a struggling middle-aged man with a dead-end job who is a struggling alcoholic trying to make his way back to normalcy and kind of find a purpose and some consistency in his life. And he does a lot of that through these kids that it's kind of a chance encounter, kind of a weird situation for him to be able to really impact their lives, but they end up impacting his life just as much.
Yeah, and the original title of this movie was called The Has-Been, referring to the titular Affleck Jack Cunningham character. I think that's an apt title too. I don't know why they changed it, but that was the original title. It really is kind of a story about a guy and it's life imitating art too. We might get into it later, but Affleck has a lot of this going on in his personal life, and so he wanted to channel a lot of that stuff into the character. Thinking about it, there's really not a lot of these movies that come out anymore. I was trying to think that the last inspirational sports movie, so to speak, that I remember seeing, and Coach Carter is one that comes to mind. That was the mid 2000s, and I can't imagine another one. I don't know what you think. I mean, Moneyball was one we talked about recently, and that was 9 years ago. But these are kind of a lost art, and I think movie studios are starting to figure out that you can pay $3 or $4 million and get this movie made, and then it's gonna 10 times whatever you put into it, because they're cheap to make. It's you don't have to special effects. It's very easy and cheap to make. But this movie, just like every single movie at the box office, the weekend of March 13th and 15th, it suffered a horrible second weekend, dropping 70% from where it was on the release day. So this movie actually ended up losing money purely based on the crazy circumstance that happened. It was I believe a 20-something million dollar budget, so pretty modest. Probably Affleck's salary was a large portion of that. But that was tough to see, and so I hope it had a good run on VOD, and I hope it's making some money back because I want more of these movies. These are good movies and are different than the normal Marvel stuff or whatever that you see coming out. And in fact, later we'll be joined by one of the actors in the movie, Rome Mathis, who was on the Bishop team and was around the actors every day on set and played a huge part in the production. So we'll get some inside knowledge onto how the way back filming went, and looking forward to talking to Rome later. But let's start with this. What is your relationship to Ben Affleck? Like, you as a movie watcher?
I couldn't name you, like, off the top of my head, that many movies that he's been in. I'm trying to think of. Yeah, I couldn't name you one, like, right on the spot, I don't think.
But you're not like a big Affleck guy. You're not like
no.
or like, if I say Ben Affleck, what do you think of? If not this movie?
Honestly, don't know.
Okay. I mean, so
Yeah.
he has been, and the reason you say that, you're not like super plugged into pop culture, but he
Yeah.
has been like kind of like off the wayside for a while. And like he had, like he was basically the biggest movie star ever in the late 90s, Armageddon, Pearl Harbor. He was getting all these like big Jerry Bruckheimer movies. And then he did a couple movies in the early 2000s, which were panned. Started dating Jennifer J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez. Then he had a bunch of like high profile relationships, and he became more known for like,
Who he was dating.
Yeah,
as
who was
opposed to
dating,
his
and
work.
he was doing a bunch of weird movies, and hadn't really been anything that was any good in a while during that decade. And then dated Aniston too, broke up with her, and so everyone started hating him. He got like an insanely ridiculous like phoenix tattoo on his back. Have you seen his phoenix tattoo? Probably not. Have you seen his
No,
phoenix
I
tattoo?
haven't.
Okay, so it is like,
No.
I remember like specifically watching like People magazine, or seeing a People in like the grocery store, and like on it was like Affleck at the beach, and he had this phoenix tattoo that takes up his entire back, or it's like a hawk or something. It's a giant bird, and it looks outrageous. It looks like a samurai tattoo, like you'd see like in what I'm talking about. But he has it for some reason. He's just like a bizarre guy. Like, he's just kind of never done what I think people expected him to do, or become the actor that a lot of people thought he would be. He starts out at the very beginning by winning a best screenwriting Oscar when he co-wrote Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon. And so you're like, this guy's going to take over Hollywood. And then Damon kind of goes on like the better career than Affleck does. Affleck's always like the funnier kind of shit kicking buddy of Damon in most of these roles. But it's interesting that then he directs The Town. I don't know if you've seen The Town. I'm sure you have.
Oh yeah, with John Hamm.
Right. He directs and stars in that. And then he directs Argo, and he stars in that, and he wins Argo wins Best Picture. He doesn't win Best Director, but he kind of gets his juju back. Then he was in Gone Girl, which he's fantastic, and he kind of like comes back. But then he his alcoholism apparently takes over, and so he's gone for another 3 or 4 years. Then he comes back and does this movie. So it's like I said, life imitating art. Earlier, he has been on the record talking about this character and how he was like, a lot of the little weird alcoholism ticks that you see in this movie are things that he's done and things that weren't in the script. It's just like, no, here's what you would do if I'm on a beer bender, then I'm putting one in the freezer and drinking one, and like I'm rotating that. But stuff like that, it's just like, that's like an alcoholic, that the stuff that I've never considered. Not to be like I'm not an alcoholic, but you know what I mean. Like,
that's like next level. You're just so in tune with that,
right? And he just had such a rhythm with it. He wasn't even thinking about it. So that's kind of the genesis of Affleck. And then the director of this movie is a guy named Gavin O'Connor. He did the movie Warrior, which you may have seen, Tom Hardy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so he's kind of the king of these dramatic sports, like daddy issue dude cry movies. Like the dude cry genre has been made on the internet to cover this dude's movies. Like, it's like, it covers issues that guys just get really emotional about, relationship with your dad, or like, as we'll see in this movie, a failed marriage and lost child and things like that really like get to dudes and kind of like in a very specific way. So he did Miracle in the early 2000s with a hockey movie with Kurt Russell about the 80s USA Olympic team. He did The Accountant with Affleck, but he uses sports as a cathartic concept in his movies. Like, we're watching a story about a dude who's going through life, like figuring shit out, but then sports is kind of what gets him there, in some way or another. So one thing I want to talk about too before we get into the categories is Jack Cunningham plays at Bishop High School, and he is I think player of the year I think this is a Los Angeles high school, based Catholic high school in 93, 94, I think, and then he was going to go play at Kansas. I think it's a banner that says 93, 94, so he was going to go play at Kansas after that. So I looked at the Kansas roster, obviously, because I wanted to know what he'd be walking into. That's a Roy Williams coach Kansas team at that point. And it's got in 95, 96, actually, young Paul Pierce joins the team. And then Rafe LaFrance is the other big guy on that team. Rafe LaFrance, of course. Yeah, played 4 years. And then the couple of Sweet 16 Elite 8 runs there in the 90s with that Kansas team. So, top 10 ranked throughout the season. So he was going to join like the powerhouse that we know Kansas to be today even then. But I just couldn't help but imagine Cunningham running with Paul Pierce and Rafe LaFrance. I mean, what do you think his play style is? Is he not to compare white guys to white guys, but is he like a JJ Redick, like shooting guard? I mean, to me, he has to be. Like, I feel like that's kind of what they modeled him after.
Or like a Dante DiVincenzo, that type of player, or like some sort of what's the guy Forte from Oklahoma State, who was
Phil Forte?
Yeah, Phil Forte. Got to be something like that.
Phil Forte was there for 10 years at Oklahoma State, I believe.
Hard-nosed point guard, can hit his spots, is really, really intelligent.
Yeah, heady, plays hard. I mean, all the stereotypical like white guy accolades for basketball, but they made him sound like a legit superstar. I mean, they were like the best high school player I've ever seen, and Bishop is clearly a high school that has a mixed team. It's not like he's like in a really expensive private school sort of situation, So it kind of reminded me of, someone that was like maybe shockingly athletic, like not like a Forte, not like a do-it-all heady point guard, but more of like a guy that could dunk on you, like what I'm saying? Like I know what's coming to mind now. But I love the notion of that. And I love the fitting in of a fictional character and kind of real life stuff. That's always cool in sports. So what were some of the things you wanted to talk about with this movie before we get into categories? Did you have anything you wanted to point out? Did anything jump out to you, or do you want to go ahead and jump in the categories?
So like I mentioned earlier, that I went in, so I didn't do any research on it ahead of time. I was like, basketball movie, okay, I'm in. I didn't know that it was going to be such a, and you mentioned that it was a dude cry movie, but I didn't really know to the fullest extent kind of what you meant by that. And becoming a father myself recently, like the last half of the movie I'm taking notes most of the first half, maybe even towards the latter third, but then, the last quarter of the movie, I just was just zoned in on everything going on. And even the basketball stuff was definitely secondary at that point to kind of the real life situations that he was working through, with, like you mentioned, the failed marriage, the child that passed away, then seeing that in his friend having to go through the same exact situation. All those are, pretty tough things that, a lot of people have to deal with.
Yeah, trigger points for him, kind of driving back to the bottle. I mean, were those effective to you, or were they sort of like those sorts of things can kind of, if you step outside yourself and think like, oh, they're putting this in here so that way I get emotional, or they can come across as cheap plot devices if they're not well executed or well acted. But how did you feel about this film's execution of those elements?
No, I thought they were good. I thought those became the focal point of the movie. Like that became the further you went along in the story, the more that was revealed about Jack's past, the more that you really understood him and understood the situation that he was in and the decisions that he had made. So all of those things, I didn't think that they were, cheesy plot points. I thought that they were pretty pivotal, and really gave us more in-depth understanding of what was actually going on with that character.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, and so let's talk a little bit about the squad too. The basketball team that comes into coach. I feel like we got to dive into this roster and kind of dissect, put our front office hats on. So yeah, feel free to jump in whenever. I mean, I've got like 5 of them written down here, but I've got. Well, let's start with Brandon. Let's start with the point guard. He's the quiet point guard, the best player on the team, a son of another local basketball star. And we see this kind of generational talent passed down. He is literally quiet, not a natural leader, but is the most talented guy on the team. Maybe won't acknowledge it himself right off the bat. And he is kind of the main basketball character, I'd say. The one the coach develops the best relationship with. They're most, at least the relationship we see the most on screen. We got Marcus, who's the mouthy center, who's the 6'3" short center. He's got to get his head on right. He's jacking threes. He's proud of his shooting percentage, even though he can't hit the ocean from the beach.
No, he's proud of his counting stats.
Yeah, exactly.
He hit the most threes.
Yeah, exactly.
He was shooting like 23%. I want to point out
Hollinger would hate that.
Affleck clearly has an old school basketball understanding and kind of strategy. By he literally told the guy, he's like, "You're the tallest person on the team. Don't leave the paint." And I was like, "Oh man, Affleck's never heard of sabermetrics and New Age analytics." Jeez.
Yeah, man, let's play 5 out. Like I mean, let's like create like driving lanes for Brandon, but whatever. And you got Marcus, who's can conceivably shoot. He didn't shoot a high percentage, but like I think you get him in the gym shooting, you create like space for Marcus, and we'll see where that goes. Well, speaking of shooting, you got Kenny, who's the white shooter. Yeah, the veritable Mike Miller on the team, and the ladies' man of the group, who wears the ninja headband, who I love. Like, what do you think of Kenny?
Dude, I loved Kenny.
Yeah, I figured you would.
He cracked me up so much. With like when it becomes just customary for him to be like kissing a different girl before the game, and like eventually Affleck just accepts it, and he's like, "Come on, Kenny, like we have to go. We have a game." Like that just cracked me up so much.
And they bring it back too when they have him running.
Confidence guy, for sure.
Yeah, the best shooter on the team. Shot 42% or so. I think is the stats given to us by the assistant coach. Speaking of the assistant coach, we got Al Madrigal is the actor's name, plays Dan, the assistant coach, the algebra teacher, and a former bench player there at the high school, is kind of taking the assistant mantra, and but can't take the full-time job because he's got family issues of his own. So what do you think of Al? Or Dan rather. I think you text me and you love this assistant. Is that because you see yourself? This is your role? Are you the quiet, heady coach on the bench? That's the good job boys, or explain to me why you like this character so much.
He's like really prepared. He had all the numbers already, which even though Affleck doesn't fully get space in the floor on offense quite yet, but the assistant coach is already kind of thinking that way. Pretty even keel. He kind of serves as the liaison between the chaplain, Affleck, and the players. Like he's kind of in the middle, kind of playing all the sides, keeping everything together. Because you got Cunningham he's coming from a different angle as far as his coaching style than most of these kids are used to, and they're a little bit against the the code of ethics or whatever, however the chaplain refers to him at that point. I just really liked him for that. I do question. I'm like, so he couldn't be the head coach because of prior commitments, but he's there all the time. So what's the difference? I don't know. Maybe he didn't have enough time to spend extra time in the film room, but it sure seems like he is already doing that and learning everything.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of seemed like he got out of it. I mean, I think he references that at night he has to do things for his family, and so like at night he can't be like running night practices or like I don't know, but he's at all the games. So yeah, I don't know. It was a little plot thing. It's like, we need you, Affleck.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And let's move on. But so then we got the last guy I want to talk about too is Bobby Freeze, the classic football player turned bruising big man. I think a strong safety on the football team. The white guy with the headband that puts his hair behind his ears with the headband, which I love to see. And he's not much skill, but all toughness on this guy. And I see a lot of Montrezl Harrell in him. Kind of sets good screens, rolls to the rim hard. Is where he needs to be. Not necessarily the most athletic guy, but knows is always in the spots, is always rolling to the rim. The kind of guy the Memphis Tigers could use right now, to be honest with you. They can actually set a screen, but that's neither here nor there. What about our guy Freeze, who starts off as sixth man, and then as we see Marcus kind of get demoted, kicked off the team, Freeze takes that starting role and takes it with pride, I think.
Yeah, not a deep bench, and I think he is your on this roster, he is the next man up once Marcus gets kicked off the team, and he comes in, performs admirably. He's a glue guy. Every team needs this glue guy, and he plays his role, I think.
Agreed. Do you have any other shout-outs to the team? I kind of hit the starters, but I think the former captain is a guy named Sam, I think, the former captain of the team that gets, that's kind of just like the senior leader. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if you have anyone else you want to shout out.
Yeah, one thing with him is that I kind of noticed that when Cunningham makes Marcus the captain, the other guy just is so okay with handing off being captain. He's like, "Oh man, yeah, we'll follow you wherever."
Yeah,
I thought that, I was like, I don't know if it would always happen like that. If you're a senior, you've been on a team for 4 years, and you've been given the captainship, it takes a really mature person, I should say, to be able to just pass that on to someone who you recognize as kind of the on court leader. But props to him for that.
That's true. I think that was his like kind of steering into his leadership and saying like this kid's like a really good kid, and they kind of set it up earlier. But these are high school kids, so you had to think they're a little bit jealous of playing time and all that. Balancing those egos is always the toughest part of coaching, I have to imagine. Okay, so let's move into the categories. First up, as usual, we have who gets the most buckets in this movie, the best acting category. I feel like there's another layup, no pun intended.
Yeah.
It's just Affleck is given the most to do. He plays the main character. He's in nearly every scene, if not every scene, and it's sort of a setup as an acting vehicle for Affleck to flex the muscles. You know, he can play the hard ass, the alcoholic, the callous guy, the failed husband, the tear jerking scenes with the psychologist or with his ex-wife. And he gets to run the whole gamut. And in a year where no movies are coming out, and there hasn't been a lot of like Oscar caliber movies just because like those usually come out at the end of the year. A lot of people are talking about, maybe he gets a nod. This is a good little performance and isn't the type of movie that usually makes it into that category. But, people are talking about him at any rate. And it might just depend on what else comes out for the rest of the year. But I thought Affleck was really good. And he came across convincing with his basketball knowledge, the way he talked about, the way he commanded the huddle. And the character, I think, was believable. And he's just made his money playing these kind of deadbeat, burnout guys that are like blue-collar guys but are probably more qualified. But he doesn't give a shit because he just wants to drink beer. So I fully bought into it. And I thought he was good. I mean, I have no complaints about Affleck's performance.
Yeah, I'd agree. The whole movie is centered around him and his story, and he did a really good job with it. So it's kind of hard to go against him.
Yeah. But let's move on to the second category, which of course is the 6-man/woman award. Makes the most of their role with limited screen time. Zach, who do you have for the 6-man award?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Al Madrigal and the assistant coach. He really, I mean, for all the reasons I listed before, he's kind of he keeps the team afloat, both on the front and back end of Jack's tenure there. And he's got good ethics. He makes tough decisions like confronting Jack when he could have just turned his head when he found the beer, and then also reporting him to the father. That's a tough thing to do, but ultimately we find out that's the right thing to do because it kind of led to a series of events that gets Jack checked into rehab and everything back on track. So if he doesn't do that, then, Jack might win some basketball games, but that's not going to help his, overall quality of life and his mental health.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I liked about the ending of this movie too is it didn't take that cheesy way out. I think that you have the pastor or the father, the principal, effectively of the Catholic school, and then the assistant coach come in and confront Jack later in the film and say like, "Look, we gave you a warning. You were drunk when you showed up to practice, and we're going to have to remove you." And Jack, of course, he turns it around on them immediately and is defensive and says, just give me another chance. Let's get through the playoffs and gives them the chance to sort of just say, yeah, you're right. Let's just get through the playoffs.
Which
and then we'll
I
figure
thought
it
was
out.
going to happen. I thought they were going to be like, you know what? Okay. But
Right.
yeah, I was really surprised that they kind of stuck with that.
And that's kind of what he's gone through with his whole life. I could sense like he's a charismatic guy, charming guy. Like he's a little bit of a bully. He could like and with the assistant early when the assistant approaches him and earlier in the movie is like, "Yo, dude, I found some beer cans in the office," and he's like, "What? You're not gonna break my balls over a few beers, are you? I mean, come on!" Like and the guy kind of just is a quieter, kind of a beta type guy, just a naturally quieter guy, and so you wonder if Affleck's gonna bully his way into the continued position or not. And then they're like, "No, dude, like you made the decision. You didn't like it wasn't us. Once we figured out what you were doing, the decision's already made for us. We don't have to decide whether to keep you.
Mm-hmm.
You already made the decision by doing this." So I thought that was kind of telling and didn't give the character the easy way out. Of course, that drives them to the ultimate catharsis and kind of drives them to have that one last bender, and then he finally gets his life right when he realizes what matters. So. Kind of the catalyst to the full character arc for him. But I did like that. Whereas some movies would take the easy way out. They'd be like, "Oh, just don't drink again, Jack," and then he'd come back and coach him to a playoff
Title.
win. Yeah, exactly. And it was like that's not what it was about. It was about this guy's journey, which was good. Yeah, I mean he's the kind of the second most screen time I feel like after Affleck. I really liked as far as the players go, Melvin Gregg as Marcus. He was good, a convincing player on the team, and had the kind of the biggest emotional arc of the players. Like he was kicked off the team. The classic like bad attitude kid, like thinks he's awesome and maybe isn't that awesome, but shows up to practice late. And it's funny that Affleck demonstrates the no exceptions made to his players, but then when it happens to him later, he tries to make excuses just like Marcus did, and so they kind of do the shades of that. But Melvin Gregg's a good young actor. He's in a movie called High Flying Bird on Netflix. Plays an NBA player that's like just entering the league, and it's a movie about agents and all the kind of the background behind basketball. There's a lockout in the fictional movie, and so that he's trying to navigate what it's like to be enter the draft when there's a lockout going on. And so he plays like a top 3 pick or so, and that's a good movie worth checking out too if you like the kind of the behind the scenes sort of basketball movies.
And kind of relevant with all this stuff, like the new invention with how the G League's going too, with this the whole basketball landscape really changing, and the way that guys are able to make money and make a name for themselves is kind of changing. So yeah, that movie is really relevant to that.
Yeah, and then honorable mention to Michaela Watkins as Beth, who I think was the wife, right? Or is it Angela the wife? You remember?
The wife is
it's
Angela.
That's
Beth,
right.
Beth is his sister.
That's right. Janina Gavankar is plays the wife, and I thought she was good. And something I haven't seen her in. I haven't really seen her in a lot of stuff, so I thought she was like really unique and good. And it's a role that you have to kind of display your acting chops. You're like emotional scenes with Affleck, and then of course you're kind of a younger actor who isn't really known, at least to me, has to go match wits with Affleck in these emotional scenes. That's tough. So I thought she did a really good job. And I mean, it takes 2 in those scenes. So I thought that a more recognizable actor, maybe like if it was like Jennifer Aniston or something, it might've seemed distracting. I thought that was really good that she was able to hold her own weight there.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, let's move into ISO play, which is a single greatest scene. I've made some nominations in my notes, and feel free to add one in. So first, I've got the rehearsing the call to the father to reject the job. He's getting beer after beer, 1 beer in the freezer at a time. His call is getting more frank by the beer. His rejection is getting more intense and mean. And I thought that was really effective to show where his mental state is, the alcoholism, and was a really cool. I hadn't seen anything like that before in a movie about an alcoholic, so that was really effective and dark, but still comical a little bit. But it's all like sort of you're just shaking your head like this guy, man. Like you just watch him like destroy himself on screen, and you want to shake him and be like, dude. That's kind of the whole thing with addiction, though. It's like they realize how stupid it is, but they can't do anything about it. So I thought that was a great scene. The introduction to the team scene where the assistant coach breaks the whole squad down, and then Jack first comes in and says how he feels about each of them, and says, Marcus, he roasts Marcus and says you can't hit the ocean from the beach because they're not guarding you. And that sort of lays in the roster of who we're going to see in this film. By the way, honorable mention to Rome. He's heavily prominently featured in that scene. He's kind of the backup point guard. I don't know if if you looked him up, but I think he wears number 33 in most of the film. So next scene, first game against Memorial, where he meets the douchey, prep school coach who's got the talented roster, who says, "I'll take the thoroughbreds." The douchey coach when referring to his players, which
hated
is
that guy.
horrendous.
As soon as he said that.
Fuck that guy for sure. And then you have the "I will not coach a team that will be out toughed" speech, where Affleck tells him to basically flagrant foul all those guys that are going to the rim. The final game against Memorial, the must win to get into the playoffs, is another great scene. I thought it's the classic sports, the last game of in the movie, and the final buzzer shot taken by the best player. I thought good setup with the whole Brandon thing. He goes like, he draws up the play earlier in the film where he has Brandon like high screen, driving to his right, and then he tries to give it to the roll man, or if neither of those options are open, he kicks it to the corner for an open 3, the Kenny shooter, and he does that, and Affleck says like, no, like even if they collapse on you, you're the best player. I want you taking that shot 100 times out of 100. And in this game, he does that. He takes a shot. So I thought good setup, payoff there. And then the last thing I have is Affleck with the grief counselor, addiction counselor at the end, where she's telling him how, basically explaining him his psychology, and he's just hold shot on Affleck, and he just kind of does the whole holding back tears thing, and it's effective. It definitely plays your emotions. You could tell that scene's in there to like manipulate you, but he's good in it, so you can't be mad about it. Any
Yeah,
other
I think
mentions for you?
one that I would add is when he's trying to get, like you mentioned, Brandon is a low key. He's the on the court leader with his actions, but not his vocal cords. He doesn't ever speak up. People can't hear him, even in a completely empty gym. And then
You
Cunningham's
gotta,
going, "What?
yeah, you gotta do yell motion, man. Get us into the motion
Yeah,
offense. They don't know when they're in the Atlanta High set, Zach.
yeah,
How are they if they're in Atlanta High and Brandon's not yelling? How are they going to get into their set? God, yell, Brandon.
yeah." And then Coach Cunningham's way up at the top, and he's just yelling at Brandon like, "I cannot hear you up here. I can't hear you. How are you supposed to hear a memorial when there's 3,000 fans, screaming down your throat?" And then he like throws the ball at he throws the basketball he has at the ball rack, and then he's throw the ball rack or he throws it at the coach, one of the two. And he's like, "Can you hear me now?" And then he storms out, and then Cunningham like kind of talks to himself. He goes, "I can hear you now."
Yeah. So you would think it was a sort of he would challenge him till he broke him, and then
Yeah.
that would make him loud. So all right. So what if you've coached a local rec team or inner city team to a title as an assistant? What would you do in the place of the situation like that where you had the best player was your point guard, which is what you want, obviously. Ball in his hands most of the time, but he's too quiet. He's not a leader. How do you motivate him? Are you Cunningham strategy or what would you do?
I would definitely, I think, spend time with like one-on-one conversation and pumping him up that way, kind of encouraging him and telling him. Really, he kind of took that approach a little bit in that huddle right there, and kind of on the car ride, and saying like, "You're the best guy. You need to be doing this. Why are you not doing this?" Clearly, Brandon doesn't believe in himself, but finding a way to, help him understand that he has the ability and should be the one taking those last second shots.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I feel like you'd been welcome there in the Bishop Hayes Tigers squad on the bench there, Zach. Maybe they needed the barn burner bro on deck. So yeah, all right, well, what's your favorite? I'll let you pick. What was the scene that affected you the most? The one that if you were trying to talk someone into watching this movie and you were like, they got this great scene where.
So I think that the first scene that really got me, the first one that I wrote down as a potential best scene was the one that you mentioned where he's rehearsing the call of the father. That's really where I think things kind of take a left turn, really change the arc of what's going on. He has the conversation of where the father tries to get him to coach, and then he goes home. He's like, "No, I'm just not going to do this." You kind of know that he needs to do it. He knows that he needs to do it, and that's ultimately why he ends up coaching the team. But that one was really, I really liked that scene. That was the first one that really kind of got me zoned in on everything that was going on. So I'm going to have to go with that, where he's cycling the beers between the fridge and the freezer.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great scene. There's a lot of good, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of good little alcoholism sort of scenes and things like that make you believe in the character. Like the beers in the shower, man. That's like, I mean, to some degree,
Oh, yeah.
you can kind of look back on college and be like, damn, like that maybe shouldn't have been drinking so much. But the
I'm
beers
glad we
and-
didn't know about the freezer deal in the college.
God, right? Yeah, you just like before you know it. How many beers did he put down in that scene? Like 30? I mean, there were like
Yeah, I think it
a
was-
case. Definitely a case at least. All I could think about too in all those scenes, he'd go to this local bar and then, would get carried up by this guy, like the bartender, like the bar back or whoever works at the bar there, maybe just some other patron that used to carry his dad, I guess.
Yeah, Doc.
Yeah, Doc, that character. Did he work there or was he just like a regular?
I think he was just a regular, yeah.
Okay. And I kept thinking like, man, dude, the hangovers this guy like must feel, and you're older, right? And you're like drinking yourself to blackout and you can't even like articulate words. You wake up and then you start drinking again. I guess it's the hair of the dog thing, right in the beer in the morning. And then he's putting straight whiskey or vodka or gin in his coffee mug and like working heavy machinery. Like just like like warm, shitty liquor, like in your like coffee cup while you're operating heavy machinery and like on all these like crazy elevators to work on construction sites. I was cringing, man.
That stressed me out a little bit, not gonna lie. The very unsafe acts that I saw there were pretty stressful. Being someone that works around equipment with, a lot of OSHA standards, that was very unsettling.
Yeah, you don't want to hire Jack Cunningham for sure. Make sure you do your background research and make sure there's no tragic loss in someone's past before you you can discriminate against people for being tragic history.
Is that a protected class? I don't know.
It sounds right to me. That's not legal advice, though. You heard it here. It's expressly not legal advice, actually. So, are those tattoos on Affleck's arms? Are those real? Do we think? Like, or I know he has the crazy back tat, but like, yeah. But I like couldn't help but wonder if like how much of it is his actual life and all that. Yeah.
So what's your pick for best scene?
That seems really good. I always like a good like when you're introduced to the team. That's a hard scene to pull off and have some zip to it. Like he comes in, you got the assistant breaking down the roster, explaining who's who does what, and you're seeing shots of them in game action when they're scrimmaging, and then you have Affleck kind of introduction to the team. He lines them up and he kind of talks shit to all of them, and they like sort of respect him, but they're also sort of like, wait, who the hell is this guy? He probably smells like beer. He's wearing like his move in this is like honestly, his move is like any other hipster white guy at any brewery these days. It's the plaid shirt over the t-shirt, but sometimes he wears the track pants too.
What up?
Are you wearing that right now? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't even notice, but he's got like he's got the track pants on too, and some old basketball shoes from back in the day he's wearing. I just love his like kind of. Also, did you notice that he like I watched it today again for the second time? I feel like he loses weight throughout the film. He literally like maybe he was like trying to show that he was drinking so much that you're just like inevitably going to be a little bigger because you're so many calories drinking, but he gets actively smaller throughout the film and more in shape. I don't know if that was purposeful or what, but
I don't know. I didn't notice that, but I did notice at one point I was like, he's a big dude. Like he looks like he's
Affleck's
pretty
a big
swole.
dude. He is. Have you seen the new Batman movies where he plays, Justice League and Batman vs Superman? He's absolutely yoked. That happens to everyone that plays Batman, but he's a big dude, like 6'3", 6'4". I mean, like a broad shoulders, a hulking presence, and you believe it. Like you really, this guy could have been a star player, and you kind of buy into him being a former athlete. So yeah, no, I like all those scenes, and I think we picked all the good ones. What do you got for most quotable quote? I had issues this because usually I go look up quotes after the fact, but like there weren't a lot of them. I mean, there was the one about like the reason they're not guarding you is because you can't throw the ball into the ocean from the beach, which is the classic shit talking kind of coach thing. What other quotes stood out to you as you watched the film?
I was doing the same thing. I was trying to look up some to see like what were really good. The one scene on the bus, I think there's some good ones there where he talks about the father is challenging him to like calm down, stop cursing so much, and he he asks the father, he's like, "Do you think God really cares about this basketball game?" And he's like, I think he fucking does, or something like that.
Yeah,
that one like sets you back a second. You're like, oh wait.
Yeah, we got the father. Yeah, comes in and talks to Affleck about his language, and then he's like, because Affleck's super hot on the bench. He's talking shit to the refs and everything. By the way, the one ref he encounters at the liquor store at the very beginning, and Sal, our boy, ref in the Catholic League.
With the flowy hair.
Yeah, just great hair, and we see him buying some scratch-offs, some lotto tickets in the beginning, and then, let it be known that he didn't call that bullshit charge. That was the other ref. And the end of the game charge on or it was a blocking foul, I think, or something.
Don't ref a game with that guy. He does not have your back.
Yeah, exactly.
Partners are supposed to have each other's back.
Yeah, he literally went like, "Oh, that's why I didn't call it." Like my other ref fucked up. So that was where we were left. But wanted to point out too this comment we got here. This film is apparently top 5 in the Sharks rankings, despite him not having seen it yet. I for sure agree with that. I mean, this is a classic Mark movie, and the fact that he hasn't seen it yet, I mean, he's going to live in the theater when he sees this, and probably reference Jack Cunningham till the cows come home for the rest of his life. Honestly, he probably views himself as a Cunningham type player. I know that he thinks himself as a slashing shooter, kind of do it all from the wing. Doesn't have to have the ball in his hands, but can dribble well enough to control it. So we'll maybe have to do another watch with Shark when he can come back in and do this movie. So what, rewatchability, what do we think? Are we thinking this is a buy on Blu-ray, rent on iTunes? Is this a film that you would show to someone later after the fact as like, hey, great sports movie. Where does this rank?
I think we kind of alluded to. I personally don't feel like it is that much of a sports movie. I don't know, but I would say it is a rentable. If I had to put in one of those categories, I would rent it and watch it. Kind of, pull it up every 4 or 5 years, something like that. Give it an extra take.
Yeah, I actually I purchased it because when it got released to VOD, when it left the theaters, I intended to go. We had texted about going to see this together, just kind of have
Yeah.
a movie, movie weekend and go see it because it's like right up our alley. Kind of a gritty sports film and basketball. We love basketball here at the barn, so we had planned to go see it, and then it came out, and then COVID immediately happened, and we couldn't make it. And so the second I realized it was going to get released, I wanted to support the film too because like that sucks. It sucked that it happened. You put your heart and effort into this, and I'm sure Rome will be able to test this when he joins too. But how much heart and effort they put into the making of this film, and then that happened. So I purchased it and watched it. There's a couple extras that are great about the background of how they had Affleck working with the actors, and Affleck talked a lot about how this was basically like he was playing himself, and how the director was like, there were times where I would just let Affleck do whatever. There were scenes where he would like the beer in the freezer thing. I don't think was in the script, and Affleck was like, no, here's what I would do if I was doing this, and if I was on a bender, this is what I would do. So it was sort of just like let him be him and be a good actor, and that was where we ended up. But it is a really good film, I think, and something that it's not really a basketball movie like you said, but are any of the sports movies really? Think of like a Hoosiers, for example. You've got a story of basketball, but there's addiction in it. There's retribution. A coach, Gene Hackman's character, is a cheater and gets back into the game. And there's stories of retribution in all of these, or else you don't really have much. But we still get the montage of the team winning and all of that, I feel like.
Pose you a question. What did you think of the quality of basketball as far as like the basketball scenes?
I will say I didn't notice things that bothered me. Sometimes I'll be like, wait a minute, what, like that would never happen, or like what, like there's no way they'd be playing like this or whatever. Like, so I felt like it was effective. Like there was a couple scenes where Affleck was calling like plays in the timeout, and that he was doing a good job like drawing actual plays up, and in real life situations he was giving the ball to the right characters. The point guard, he was having the big man come set the screen and all that. So that was cool. What do you think about the basketball in the film?
No, I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, like you said, nothing really stuck out as like that's totally crazy. I did notice that at one point he it might have been the Memorial game. He's trying to set up a press, but with a team that it doesn't look like they've had a ton of. With him, they've had hardly any time to practice because he starts like over the weekend and their first game's on Monday. But just like drawing up a press and telling everyone just to go for it, that was a little far fetched, but. As far as the
diamond press, man, the diamond press works all the time. I mean,
but if you have a team if you have a really well coached team, then sure they know. But if you have, a team with only 6 deep, it's probably you're not going to be able to press the whole game probably. So that's
why they're running the bleachers, Zach. They're getting in shape and the stamina. But we're actually now joined by our boy Rome Mathis. We join him to the show. We got Rome Mathis here in the show now. What's up, Rome? We got. He's the 6th man for the Bishop Hayes Tigers squad, and we're happy to have him join the program now and talk about his involvement in the movie. Rome, how are you, man? What have you been doing?
Man, I'm doing well. Staying safe right now. Staying indoors. Just trying to be super careful and take care of myself, take care of everyone else around me. So, it's super crucial for everyone to stay indoors right now. Stay at the house. And there will be a time when, all this will be over. So, but for right now, I think everyone should definitely, stay in the house, stay quarantined, and stay healthy.
It's hard too. And you see like one of your friends out on Instagram that posts like a story about them somewhere, and you want to be like, hey man, like maybe just go home. You don't need to be doing this right now, but we're all kind of keeping each other accountable too. So we appreciate that message. You're out in LA right now, right?
Yeah, I'm in LA. So
how is it?
It's strict out here. Like even when you go to the grocery store, they want you to have a mask on. I mean, the city's pretty much shut down. It's crazy. Like there's no traffic throughout the city, which in LA is unheard of. But like you can get to one side of LA to the other side of LA in like 20, 30 minutes right now because, people are trying to, follow orders and stay home as much as possible and only travel when It's an emergency, super need be type basis. So, we're on lockdown till at least May 15th, and we'll hear from the governor and see if things are going to open up after that.
That's crazy, especially a bustling town like LA. I can't fathom what it's like. It's got to be movie like. I mean, with the deserted streets, because the traffic is
Man.
like, that's what you know about LA. Like, it takes like an hour and 30 to get anywhere. We've got a good friend who lives in Rancho Cucamonga. He works for the government out there. So I mean, I've been out there once, but yeah, I know that's got to be wild to see.
Yeah, I could probably get to Rancho right now in like 45 minutes, which normally that's like a 2 hour, 2.5 hour trek if it's traffic like crazy.
Yeah. So, how'd you get into acting? First off, what I think you went to Arizona with some other friends of the Barn Burner, Taylor, and to some extent Sub too. Yeah, and so that's how we met you. So you know those guys. So where are you from? How'd you end up at Arizona, and walk us through from there?
Yeah, man. So first, I mean, if we really want to take it back to like my acting career, I started acting in like middle school. It was just something that I wanted to do. I saw other kids doing it, and I was like, oh, that looks fun, and I know I could do it. So I just went for it. Like, I've always been someone that, like, if I want to do something, you just jump in, you just do it. That's the best way to start. It's not creating a game plan or anything like that. You just got to go for it. Take a leap of faith. So I did that back in middle school. But then going into my college career, I always thought like, oh, I want to be an actor. But, your parents and people tell you that's not realistic. Like, think of something you could do. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a business degree. So I'm from Tucson originally. I wanted to go to one of the UC schools. I wanted to go to like UCLA, USC, but that was like way too expensive. So I was like, I'll stay home. It was a school that I was comfortable with. I grew up watching U of A basketball, U of A football my whole life. So I was like, I'm a homer. I'm going to stay home. Went to school, studied economics. But towards the end of my college career, it's coming down to, what am I going to do? I need to start looking for a job, like work a regular job for the rest of my life. Is that something I want to do? And I thought about it and I was like, no, I want to pursue a passion. And so I went back to what did I like to do when I was a kid? And I like to play basketball and I like to act. And it was like, well, I'm about to graduate college. I'm not going to the NBA. So let's pick up acting again. So I just picked it up as I was, finishing out my last semester of college, graduated, and I moved out to LA. And here I am, man, just acting away.
So you graduate college. You're like, I'm going to do this acting thing. You pack up your car and move out to LA without any plans. Like you have no job, no gig yet. I mean, you just pack up your car. You have friends out there. You don't have an agent yet. You're just out there hustling, I guess, right?
Yeah, no agent yet. So like I said, I started acting before I left college. So I had already started like, selling myself to people who were in LA, like casting directors. And I got an acting coach that was based in LA. We would work kind of how we're working now, like over the internet, like just, FaceTime, however I could get training. And yeah, I mean, just packed up my car, got out here. But like I said, because I had already started 6 months prior, I had connections when I got out here. I had a friend that, lived out here, and a lot of people from LA go to University of Arizona. So all my friends that graduated as well were back here. So it was a lot of people out here supporting me and stuff like that. I can't just say like, yeah, I came out here and didn't know anybody. Like I came out here and I was pretty established. I was pretty blessed to say the least.
At least you had a network and people to fall back on too. Cause you hear those crazy stories about someone throwing a trunk in their car and driving out there and just showing up at some casting director's door and figuring it out.
Yeah, I have so many friends that are like from Delaware or like West Virginia. And like, they're like, yeah, I didn't know no one west of the Mississippi, and I just packed up my car. And I'm like, man, like hats off to you, man.
For sure. So how'd you get this role? Walk us through the beginning of your career, and you end up, getting this role. And then I guess you're trying to, it seems like, I don't know, you could speak to this, but you love playing basketball, you love acting. So it seems like maybe you're targeting projects in which you can kind of merge those two passions, or maybe not, walk us through that.
Definitely. So like something that I was told is like, everyone that wants to act can act. Like they're all here to act. So you have to find your niche, like something that can get you in the business, like a skill that, not that many other people have that will get you on board. And that for me is basketball. I've been playing basketball since I was like 3 years old. So I ended up getting an agent and stuff. And I told them like, send me out for stuff that has to do with basketball. I'm good at playing basketball, and it worked. So I get this audition and it's like, oh, basketball role. And by this time, I've already been in LA for a few months. I've gone on tons of auditions, basketball auditions. So I'm pretty, accustomed to what's happening. But I get to this audition and there's like 500 people there. They brought in like every basketball player in LA, that's not playing for the Lakers or Clippers. People are like 6'9", 7 foot. People like, yeah, I play in Serbia, all this stuff. And, they play overseas and all this stuff. And I'm here like 5'10", like I like to play and I'm good. But these are they're professional basketball players that do like commercials in their off time.
And I have to think you see these people at every audition, right? Like you're auditioning for all the same kind of roles. So like usual suspects all show up every time. There's like, we need some actors that can play basketball.
Yeah, I'm sure Memorial High recruited some of those guys.
Yeah,
exactly.
But this is different. Even like people that were better than the kids that ended up getting on Memorial. And they didn't give us much information with the audition. So, I mean, it's a high school basketball movie, so they ended up going with the people who look younger. But when you get there, you don't know that. So I just see all these people and I'm like, yo, they're probably just going to go with the dudes who are, 6'9", jumping out the gym. Because they didn't tell me it's a Ben Affleck movie. They didn't tell me. They're just like, we need some basketball players and you guys are going to get paid. Are you going to come? And it's like, yes.
So what was the call sheet? Is it just like, just that guy can play basketball, like this kind of looks this age? They give you an age range. What did the call sheet look like?
Yeah. So when we got there, that's when they broke it down. Like at first, like I said, I'm intimidated. I'm seeing all these people and I'm like, man, there's 500 of us. Like they're not going to need everybody. What's going on? And then we get there and they're like, we're looking for people who look younger. Like we need high school range. So I was like, okay, that helps out a little bit. Like, it's kind of my area. So I mean, from there, I went into the tryout and my jumper was so broke that day. I missed every shot that I took, but my handle, in layup lines, I was getting saucy. And then I took a couple people to the cup, crossed a couple people, was showing them what it is, but I could not hit a jumper. Like I hit one and it was like all backboard, like didn't even hit the rim. I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this role. But they ended up calling me back and they're like, oh, so we want you to be a part of this movie. So I'm super excited. And they're like, what's your availability? And at this time I'm working for Apple. So I'm like, oh, I have like medium availability because I have a job. And then I'm sitting there and thinking, I'm like, I want to be an actor. Like if I want to be an actor and I'm telling them I'm not available to act, like how does that go? So I emailed them right back and I'm like, cancel that. I have full availability. And they're like, okay, perfect. Since that's the case, we want to put you on the main team, Bishop Hayes. And I'm like, cool. So I tell Apple, like, hey, I got to take some time off. I'm about to shoot this movie. And I tell my mom, everybody, I'm so excited I'm about to be in this movie. I get another email and they're like, oh, you need to come in and audition again.
Oh, man.
And I'm like,
that's a nightmare scenario. Nightmare scenario. And big studio too, Warner Brothers. You're talking to these execs. This isn't some small like indie film. Like this is a big time studio.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you go back in for second audition. What's that?
Yeah. Like? So I mean, first I'm like shaking because I'm like, man, I've already told my job that I'm taking time off. My mom thinks I'm gonna be in a movie. Like now I'm gonna have to go back and tell them, oh, I ended up not getting it. But I go in and they make a scrimmage and we get blasted. The team they put me on, we get destroyed. Like they're cooking us. It's me and like one other guy, my man Herbert. Shout out to Herbert. He ended up booking the film as well. But out of the people they put on our team, it was only me and him. And like we had a good little chemistry because like you said, like I had seen him in other auditions. So we kind of knew each other. We're like, hey, we got to do what we got to do to book this movie. So we're doing some give and goes. And, we're both kind of showing out, but we get destroyed. But we do it. And I think I get in the car and I'm driving home. And even before I get home, I get the email and it's like, all right, like you're officially booked. You made it. And I was just like, praise God. Thank you. I don't got to go back and tell my mom that they canceled my role.
So then you get booked. And then when did y'all shoot? I think 2018 is what I saw online and out in LA, right? The whole movie was shot out in LA.
Definitely. So once I booked the role, a couple weeks or months go by, I forget now because it's 2018. But we start having basketball practice, like just practice. We're not working on acting. Like they're just like, we need to make sure you guys can hoop, because some of the guys couldn't. Like some of these guys were just pure actors. So we had like, I want to say a full 6 weeks of like basketball training camp, which for me it was a breeze. Like I'm sitting in there like it feels like open gym, because it's like,
Yeah, you're getting paid to play basketball. That's like
I'm
part of your dream
getting,
right there.
Man, and we're doing some drills. The only thing that was hard is it was only 10 of us. So some of these drills, like we were doing like 3-on-2, 2-on-1, or 3-man weave, and it's like you do it and then you get back and they're like go, and then like you have to get back in line and do it again. I'm like, so I am out of shape a little bit, but like the drills, I'm killing them, and everybody else is like, trying to get the hang of doing a 3-man weave. And I'm like, come on, bro, like just pass the ball and then go behind them. It's not that hard. But, like I said, they're actors, but
you're out there teaching the fundamentals to all these folks. And really the team is supposed to be a ragtag group. So y'all aren't supposed to look like, just super awesome right off the bat. It's kind of part of the plot.
Sure.
So I imagine that was part of it. So then you do the training camp, and I imagine y'all get to know each other. Is it like a cool atmosphere?
Mm-hmm.
Is everyone hanging out? I mean, they probably want y'all to gel and get some chemistry going, I imagine.
Man, you're spot on, man. That's exactly what happened. We ended up gelling, like all of those guys, like even more than friends. Like they're my lifelong like brothers now. We all bonded immediately. We were hanging out, like we're at practice every day, and then we're hanging out after practice, like because we just met each other. We're like, yo, we're about to shoot this movie, so we're going out together, going to get drinks after. We're all going as a team to eat food. So yeah, we all gelled immediately, and like I said, we're all friends. We're all in a group chat now. I think like they didn't introduce us to Ben to like the second or third to last practice, but we ended up meeting Ben, and then we started shooting, man, and it's fun.
So Affleck comes in third week. What was that like? I mean, is he just walking the gym? And I mean, you got to walk me through this. That's got to be fascinating for a group of young actors. Because Affleck,
Yeah.
I mean, we grew up watching this guy. He's a notable actor that I can't imagine what that's like. So walk me through that day.
So first off, we're there, and police come through first. They scope the place out, make sure it's safe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's going on? And then he just walks in the gym, and he's chill. He goes and sits in the bleachers to himself, and he just kind of watches. He watches the whole practice and doesn't really get involved. Like we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if he was going to, because like we had the studio hires like a third party to basically coordinate, a basketball coordinator, if you will, game-changing films. So they've done so many movies. They did Coach Carter. They do the basketball for all these movies. And they were like, when Samuel L. Jackson came in for Coach Carter, he came in on the first day and grabbed the clipboard and was like, I'm the coach. Then he kind of sat back a little bit, just watched and observed. And then at the end of the practice, they're like, oh, we want to introduce you guys to Ben. And he comes over, like he's still trying to fill us out. And I think I was the first one to say something. I'm like, man, come on, what's up? Give me a hug. Like just trying to like, we're all close already. So I wanted to acclimate him all right away. And he's probably like, yo, who's this kid? Like, who does he think he is? Like, but I think not that practice. And then the first day that we actually shot, it was still kind of filling each other out. But I think after that, he got really comfortable with us too. And he gelled the same way. I was just talking about all my guys. When I talk about all my guys and call them brothers, Ben is included in that. He's in our group chat. He's a mentor to us as far as acting goes. I mean, he's even outside of acting for some of us, a father figure. Like, he gives us life advice and so much. So, I mean, man, he's just a cool guy. He's awesome. And he helped us out so much throughout the movie, making it a good experience for us.
It's always good to hear too. Go ahead, Zach.
Did he play with you guys at all? Like to get any run in?
No, he didn't play any basketball. And this is the only thing he doesn't like.
Oh, no.
To talk about. Like, hopefully he doesn't watch this, but
I don't know if I want it spoiled for me.
Yeah, I want you to breach any non-disclosure agreements that I know at the end, is that actually him shooting the shots on the beach court?
It's not.
Oh,
we had to hire somebody to do it. I saw him pick up a basketball once the whole time we were shooting. And I think he picked it up. Remember when Melo did the pump fake on everybody?
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all saw that, but that's basically what Ben did to us. He picked up a ball and we were like, and then he put it down and we were like, nah, but yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. So yeah, that nicks one of my questions. Is I was gonna say like who checked Affleck and like what give me his go-to move, but it sounds like y'all didn't get some run in.
Yeah.
All right,
No,
so who's the best hooper on the in real life on the team? Y'all
me,
played a lot. Okay,
I
all right.
would say
Who's
without a doubt. But behind me, Fernando is really good. Who he played Garcia. So Garcia is really good. Behind him, I would say Melvin, who he played with Marcus.
yeah?
Yeah,
And
so Melvin's pretty good.
we were talking about Melvin too. I mean, he was in High Flying Bird.
Mhm.
Before this, I knew I recognized him, so I IMDb'd him and saw that, and that's of course like another big kind of behind basketball movie, and it's
Yeah.
Steven Soderbergh film, which he shot, I guess,
Mhm.
before this. So
On the
he's
iPhone 10.
right,
It was
yeah,
all filmed on iPhone 10. But
yeah.
yeah,
So what did he have any advice for you guys? Like, hey, I've played in. I mean, granted, there was no real basketball played in High Flying Bird, but it was cool to see him pop back up, and I guess he's kind of in the same wheelhouse as you. But so it sounds like that you were the best, and Melvin was pretty good, and so but most of the starters it seemed like you didn't name. I mean, how was Brandon? Did Brandon have to learn the game?
Brandon is good. He can
Okay,
hold his own. I put him in that same tier. Like
okay,
it's me, and then like it's after me, Fernando, Brandon, Melvin, and then after that, it's the other guys that are on the bench with me. So Ben Irving, who played, I forget his character name, but he's like the strong safety. He's a football player. He was solid. Like he's not bad, but like he wasn't. He probably a tier behind them. But Brandon was decent.
yeah. Bobby
He's good.
Freeze was his name. Yeah,
Bobby Freeze.
yeah,
There we go. There we go.
the screen setter rolling to the
What
rim.
a-
Did he have good hands? I
Mhm.
mean, you got to have good hands
Yeah,
when you're rolling to the rim.
that's actually like his role in real life. Like he'll back you down, hit like a little Dirk fadeaway. So
Okay.
like that was kind of his game. Like cut to the basket, set a screen, roll. If you hit him, he's gonna catch it and get a good layup. So he was solid. But yeah, like I said, me, I think I'm like a tier on my own. And then after that, Melvin, Brandon, Fernando, Tyler, Herbert, like the bench guys. And then I'll say like Ben. And then underneath that, Will, who, he has the 3-point chopper, but he's not the best basketball player. He'll admit it, though. But, hey, he worked really hard, though. On the team, he would really be like the 12th man who's like there because his dad bought the jerseys. But he plays really hard.
Right.
He gives 100%. And he gave 100% every day. And I salute him for it because he's a baseball player. So, to pick up a whole different sport and, give it your all every day, even when you're struggling, he did his thing, man. So shout out to Will.
For sure, playing our sharpshooter boy Kenny, the womanizer of the group.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Kenny got them ladies, man.
That's him in real life, too. He get all the women.
Oh yeah, all right.
Nah, I'm just giving a little shout out.
Yeah, all right. Shout out to our boy Will.
Yeah.
Zach, were you about to say something?
No.
So did y'all shoot in order? Was it shot chronologically or explain what was the first day on set? What was that scene?
For sure. So the first day we shot at St. John Bosco High School, which is like a huge football high school in Southern California. We shot there first, and that was like one of our away games. After that, we shot all of our home games. So anything in our home gym, we shot all of that. So we shot the practices, Memorial, the time we beat them. We beat them before we lost to them. If we shooting wise, because we shot everything in that gym. And the last thing we shot was us going to Memorial and getting our asses kicked. I hope I can say that on here.
Yeah, you good. Yeah, you can say whatever.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so I always find that interesting. Like that's always tough when you're shooting out of order and you have to portray the developing relationships and all that stuff too. So that's interesting. Cool, man. Yeah, I need some good Affleck stories. I mean, if the ones you can tell. I mean, it sounds like y'all are in a group chat,
For sure.
and so he's going to be kind of a mentor to all you guys. Is probably giving you advice both professionally and personally at this age. He remembers what it was like to be a young 20-something-year-old in the business, and he's done everything, man. He's won an Oscar for writing.
Yeah.
He's acted in Oscar movies. He's been in not so good movies. I feel like he's run the whole gamut for a young actor that you can have.
He's directed movies. He's directed and starred in movies at the same time. Man, he's a beast. Just when I think of him, he's just a true thespian, and even more than that, like he's just fully immersed in the business, which I appreciate. He's not just some like celebrity, and he's a celebrity, so he just gets in movies. Like he actually cares about the art, which is important. But I mean, if we get away from the art, if you want to hear my favorite story about Ben, is just when he literally took all of us to Vegas. So we like wrapped the movie, and he's like, yeah, so we're wrapped, but we're all in this group chat, and we're like, what do we do now? And he's just like, do you guys want to go to Vegas? And we're like, of course we like. Who doesn't want to go to Vegas?
Is that
like,
a question? Yeah.
Yeah, we want to go. And then like Melvin hits him, and he's like, well, are we taking the PJ? And then Ben's like, well, let me see what I could do. And then like a couple weeks later, he's like, Van Nuys Airport, be there tomorrow. Like he gave us 1 day's notice, and he's like, we're going to Vegas.
Oh, on the PJ,
But
man.
who's not going to take that up? Like, I don't care what I had planned. I was going to figure it out. So, man, we go to Vegas. Ben is super big on playing like blackjack and stuff. So he taught us all how to play. We're playing in like private rooms, high stakes rooms and stuff like that. We got to go to a playoff hockey game. I think it was the Knights, and I forgot who they were playing at the time. But I'm not going to lie. I was so drunk the whole trip. Like, so
I bet it's just one big blur, man. Like that's Vegas for you in general, but
exactly. But this is a different level because like we get on the PJ, and as soon as we got on the PJ, they're just like, "What do you want to drink?" And you don't have to pay for it, and it's all top shelf. And it's like it's gonna be a long couple days. But man, it was a blast, and it was just I can't share too much because we're in Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But like I said, he liked to play blackjack. We played a lot of blackjack. We got to go to a hockey game all together, and we got to fly private, which was something I had never experienced before. So that was amazing to do, and that's my best Ben Affleck story.
That's not bad, man. I think that's a lot better than a lot of people's Ben Affleck stories. What an experience!
For sure.
So what was Gavin O'Connor like, the director? I mean, was he really hands-on, or he let the basketball coordinator kind of handle most of the on-court stuff, or explain the shooting process during the day?
Man, Gavin was amazing to work with. Like even though like I'm an actor and he's the director, like he cared about our opinions. Like we'd be like, well, can we do it this way? Or what if, like if we had an idea, it was okay. It wasn't like, he was like, oh, my way or the highway. We're going to shoot it this way. 1 through 10, like I said, there's 10 of us. Obviously, I wasn't the highest man on the totem pole. But even if I had an opinion or a suggestion, he was always down to listen. And as we went on, my suggestions were normally taken because I knew the most about basketball. So when it came down to basketball, if I was like, this isn't realistic or something like that, he'd be like, okay, well, what can we do to make it realistic? Or let's partner back up with Amy, the coordinator of basketball, and figure out a way to make it realistic. Like he was just super hands-on. Like he talked to us. Sometimes you hear directors like they stay in Video Village and like you never see them. Like you just see their assistant director, whoever. But he was always coming out, asking us how we were doing. Did it feel good? He just wanted to make it look natural. I think that was the most important thing for him, is like, a natural feel. And I think we got that. I mean, obviously we didn't do anything. I say like the basketball was vanilla. It's not like we got too complex, but it made sense. And I heard that's what you guys were talking about before I got on, but I mean, spot on. I said the same thing about the press. I was like, we only play 6 guys. Like, well, how are we pressing? Like, it doesn't make sense, but
why is everyone else busting their ass on the bleachers when they're not going to get in the game?
Yeah, I'm like another tick. What's going on?
I mean, like the dramatic license kicks in a little bit there, and some basketball, the movie bullshit comes into play a little bit when
it has to be. No movie is perfect. That's the way I look at it. Like it can't be 100% authentic. Like it's 2 different worlds. Trying to coexist, and you want to hit that movie magic, but obviously you want to make the basketball look real. The best way to do that is to keep it simple, really. And that's what he did. All the plays he drew up were like simple, like the jargon. It's not like we had him, talking about the nail or, anything, keep it simple. Hit the high posts, pick and roll.
Things that everyone
hit
can
the guy
understand.
The guy on the baseline. So kept it real simple. But part of that is because it is supposed to be more than just a basketball movie. Like you see, he's going through his issues and stuff. So, basketball was, important, but it wasn't the main thing. So we kept it very simple.
What is Atlanta High? I know that's an offensive set that's called out. We never get to see it in action. What was that? Was that part of the motion offense, or break that play down to me?
Nah, let me try to remember, because it was actually like a play that we drew up. But it really is just like, it was so simple. I think like the 4 or the 5 comes and screen. It's a pick and roll, and then the 2 guards, or the wing and the guard, just set like a down screen, and someone comes off of it. To be honest, man, it's been so long, but
Yeah.
we were running these plays like it was an actual play that we had in our offense, and it was actually like a good, simple play that could work if you called it every now and then. But I want to say it was really like basically what the play he called most of the game. Like when you see, he's like, oh, someone set the high screen for Brandon, and then Garcia and Free set the down screen for Kenny to come off and shoot the 3. That was basically it.
Yeah.
But obviously there's all those options. Like you can hit the screener or the roller, and all that. But yeah, we actually had a couple of like plays that were drawn up, and it just didn't make its way into the movie. A lot of it ended up being like montage scenes and stuff like that. So
Right, a lot of basketball had to be played to get those montage cuts. So, how much, was there any scenes that you were in that made the cutting room floor that you were really proud of that we didn't get to see in the film, or anything you want to shout out that we didn't get to necessarily see that as part of your process in the film? Or
yeah, I would say a lot of like what we were doing in practice, like because we shot a bunch of stuff for like when we were in practice, like more than just us running the bleachers. Like we were all running suicides, and we're all like, just going through practice, different people. But part of it, to be honest, when we were playing, so we're like, they just had a scrimmaging. Like we're actually playing, and Gavin like is like, cut. He yells cut, and I think I scored like 3-4 buckets in a row. And he's like, I can't use any of that. Like you're killing them, and it's not realistic. Everyone is going to watch the movie and be like, why isn't that guy a starter?
Cunningham doesn't know who to play.
Yeah, Cunningham's just mismanaging his roster, man. Like, forget Brandon. We need Rome. Yeah.
So really, they were just like, we can't use any of that. So I had to like scale back. So a lot of what I did was just like, I acted like a backup point guard. I'd like, if you even see like, there's one part in the movie where we're like in practice, and I just like pull it up and set up the offense and stuff. So, but yeah, I was cooking in practice when they would allow me to.
That's the hardest kind of acting to do, is to act like you're worse at something than you are. And that's harder than actually practicing and being good at it, I have to imagine.
For sure.
Well, cool, man. Well, I know Tinseltown's shut down right now because of COVID. No one's doing anything. But what do you have on deck for the future? What kind of projects are you looking to get a part of, or have you got anything lined up that you can talk about, or what's the future for Rome Mathis look like right now?
Definitely, man. So yeah, everything's shut down right now. So as far as when everything's going to open back up, we don't really know when. But just being patient at this point. I don't have anything immediately booked for when things open back up, but I feel like the floodgates are just going to open like right now, because people are still writing, people are still like, trying to get their scripts out there. So right now it's like a dam, like everything's just building up. And when they do let everything go, they're gonna be like, yo, we need to cast these roles. And so hopefully a couple fall into my hands. But I did like a TV show episode that will probably be coming out this summer that I shot a couple months ago. So we're just waiting for, that show to air. And yeah, just right now focusing on my craft. I'm still taking classes and stuff online. Obviously can't go out, but still getting not a lot, but a good amount of auditions. So they're just not giving us word. I mean, I could have already booked one of these auditions, and they're just waiting to figure out when we're going to start shooting, and they'll hit my agent and be like, all right, well, we liked him. We just haven't said anything because we didn't know we were going to start shooting. So we'll see. But I mean, the future is going to hold a lot more of me. I mean, you could just, I'll say that you're going to see me, I'm trying to be in movies, TV, voiceover, cartoon, all of that. I have all of that planned. And I know you were kind of asking me about like basketball. Like, yeah, I love basketball, and I could see myself doing another basketball role, but I don't want to limit myself to that.
Yeah.
I plan to do it all. So I could do sports roles. I could do comedy roles. Like I said, cartoons, just straight drama, comedy. whatever comes my way, I'm ready for it.
We're excited to watch your career progress, Rome. Looking forward to what you do next, man. And it was awesome you booked this role. It's huge. I mean, you made a lot of great connections in this, and we'll be excited to see what you do next. I always like to ask friends of the program that come on that are in the industry, what was the last great thing that you watched and enjoyed that you can tell our audience about, that something maybe they haven't seen? Right now, all we're doing is watching shit. And like you said, practicing your craft. A lot of the writers are in the bunker right now writing scripts, and everyone, I think, like you said, there's going to be just an overflow of available projects when when Hollywood opens. But what was the last great thing you watched and something you want to point out to our audience?
Sure, man. I'm watching tons of stuff right now. I'm always watching, trying to see what's going on and who's acting and what I can take from other people. To me, watching shows is like watching film. So it's like, when you see a basketball player or a football player watching film, movies and TV is film for me. What's big for me right now, Black as Fuck just came out on Netflix. It's starring and written by Kenya Barris, he's huge. He came out with like Blackish and Mixed-ish and all those other shows, and Shaft, the new one, the remake. But yeah, Kenya's huge in the business, and shout out to him. The show's a success. I really like it. Money Heist. I've been watching that. I watch a lot of shows. Movie wise, what's the last good movie I've seen? It's been so many. I'll take it back. I just watched like Hotel Rwanda, which is an older movie. I think it came out like 10 years ago. But Don Cheadle, man, he's a beast. So that's something that I've watched. Obviously new movies aren't coming out right now, so I'm going back and watching the old ones and just seeing people work. But yeah, excited for things to open back up and be able to start watching some new movies again. I think the last movie I saw before COVID started was Invisible Man, and
that was a good one. Yeah. Now it got, just like way back, got released directly to VOD, and and two, related question I want to ask before we let you go is like, where do you think the movie industry goes from here? I mean, do you think we start seeing more direct to VOD situations and less theatrical run, or because this is kind of like this weird experiment now that Hollywood is being forced to do because of this disease? What do you think happens?
Definitely, that's a great question, man. And we actually asked Ben what his opinion was. So I'll kind of give you what he told us, just because I feel like he's a little bit more knowledgeable. He talks to those executives every day. But I don't think movie theater. Well, he doesn't think. I basically agree with what he said. Movie theaters aren't going to go anywhere, but I feel like less movies are going to go into those theatrical releases. It's just going to be the big box office hits. So when you think about that, you're going to think about your animations for kids, because kids want to go out when they see those and see them on the big screen. And then obviously the huge movies, the Marvels, just those huge, the Fast and the Furious, all those movies that, big box office, $100 million. Movies like the way back, dramas and stuff like that. It's going to be that video on demand straight there, or a streaming platform. And I think the business is definitely going to change, and this is part of it. I think a lot of stuff is going to change with all that's going on, but change isn't necessarily a bad thing. So we'll take it in stride.
Agree. Well, Rome, appreciate your time, buddy. Thanks for coming on. You got two big fans here in Memphis and with the Barn Burner, so we'll look forward to what you do next. And feel free to jump on the program anytime. If there's a movie you want to talk about, let us know, and let's chop it up and do a whole podcast on it.
Definitely, man. I'm with it, man. I appreciate both of you guys for having me, man. Thank you.
Of course.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate y'all from Memphis to LA. My guys.
Yes, sir. All right, Rome. Talk soon, buddy.
Best of luck. Stay safe.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, man. Y'all too.